Sangwoo never loses focus, ever. The 32-year-old Korean businessman sits at the head of a sleek conference table on the 43rd floor of a glass tower in downtown San Francisco, commanding a room full of investors who collectively control over $2 billion in assets. His reputation as the most disciplined negotiator in the Pacific Rim business community is the stuff of legend. People fly across continents just to watch him work, to study the way he dissects complex deals with surgical precision, never wavering, never hesitating. Today's meeting is crucial. Sangwoo's organization is finalizing a multi-million-dollar commercial development deal in the financial district, a project that will reshape 3 city blocks and cement his position as one of the most influential business figures on the West Coast. He has prepared for this presentation for 6 weeks. Every slide is perfect. Every number is verified. Every potential objection has a prepared response. He is halfway through his analysis of projected returns when the conference room door opens. A woman walks in, 15 minutes late, carrying a leather portfolio stuffed with zoning documents that look like they might spill out at any moment. She is flustered, clearly aware that she has interrupted something important. Her fair skin has a slight flush to it, and her natural hair is pulled back in a professional style that somehow looks both hurried and intentional. "I am so sorry," she says, her voice carrying a warmth that immediately cuts through the corporate tension in the room. Traffic on the 101 was absolutely insane, and then parking was a nightmare. One of the senior investors waves dismissively, gesturing to an empty chair directly across from Sangwoo. The woman moves quickly, settling into her seat and arranging her documents with practiced efficiency. Sangwoo has barely glanced at her. He is already returning his attention to the presentation, picking up exactly where he left off without missing a beat. This is what he does. Distractions do not exist in his world. External chaos does not penetrate the bubble of focus he creates around himself during important negotiations. "As I was saying," he continues, his accent carrying just the slightest Korean inflection that years in America have not completely smoothed away. The third quarter projections indicate a minimum return of 18%, with conservative estimates placing. He makes the mistake of looking directly at her. She is already looking at him, not in the polite, attentive way that professionals look at presenters. She is actually looking at him, her dark eyes bright with something he cannot immediately identify. Intelligence, maybe. Amusement, possibly. And then she does it. She winks. Just once. A single, deliberate closing of her right eye, so quick that if someone blinked they would miss it entirely. It is not flirtatious in an obvious way. It is playful, conspiratorial, like they are sharing a private joke that nobody else in this serious, expensive room would possibly understand. Sangwoo's brain completely short-circuits. The carefully constructed sentence he was building collapses mid-word. His mouth is still open, but no sound is coming out. Every single number, every projection, every meticulously prepared talking point vanishes from his mind like someone just hit a delete button on his entire consciousness. The room goes silent. 12 investors, his business partner Kenneth, and 2 assistants all stare at him with varying expressions of confusion. Sangwoo never pauses. He does not hesitate. He certainly does not lose his train of thought in the middle of the most important presentation of the quarter. Kenneth Kim, his business partner of 7 years, leans forward slightly. "Sangwoo, you were saying about the third quarter projections." Sangwoo blinks. He looks down at his presentation materials, then back up at the room. His gaze involuntarily drifts back to the woman who just walked in. She now looks almost as surprised as he feels, her eyes slightly widened, as if she cannot quite believe what she just did or the effect it had. "I apologize," Sangwoo says, and his voice sounds strange to his own ears. "Where was I?" One of the investors, an older man named Richard Preston, exchanges a glance with his colleague. In the 7 years these people have worked with Sangwoo, they have never seen him rattled. Not during the 2020 market crash, not during hostile negotiations, not ever. Kenneth smoothly steps in, picking up the presentation thread and guiding the meeting back on track. Sangwoo tries to refocus, but it is like trying to grab smoke. Every few seconds, his eyes drift back across the table to where she sits, now very deliberately looking at her documents, her pen moving across a legal pad in quick, efficient strokes. Who is she? What firm is she with? And why did she just completely destroy his legendary composure with a single wink? The meeting stumbles forward. Kenneth carries most of the remaining presentation while Sangwoo provides backup information when directly questioned. By the time they wrap up 90 minutes later, Sangwoo has recovered enough to deliver a strong closing statement, but the damage to his reputation is done. People are whispering. Glances are being exchanged. As the room empties, Sangwoo deliberately hangs back, organizing his materials with uncharacteristic slowness. The woman is doing the same, sliding documents back into her portfolio. When they are the only two left in the conference room, she looks up at him. "I really am sorry about being late," she says. "That was unprofessional." Sangwoo studies her for a moment. Up close, she is even more striking than he initially registered. There is an intelligence in her eyes that he finds immediately compelling, and a straightforwardness in the way she holds his gaze that most people do not manage. "What is your name?" he asks. "Mirabelle Thomas. I am with Coastline Consulting Group. We handle regulatory and procurement coordination for international development projects." She extends her hand. He shakes it. Her grip is firm, confident. "I am Sangwoo Cho." "I know who you are," she says with a slight smile. "Everyone knows who you are, which is why I feel absolutely terrible about." She trails off, the flush returning to her cheeks. "About what?" He keeps his expression neutral, curious to hear how she will address it. Mirabelle closes her eyes briefly, then opens them with a look of resigned embarrassment. "About winking at you in the middle of your presentation like some kind of weirdo. I genuinely have no idea what came over me. You were so serious, and everyone in the room looked absolutely terrified of you, and I do not know. Temporary insanity." Despite himself, Sangwoo feels the corner of his mouth twitch. "People are not terrified of me." "They absolutely are," Mirabelle says with complete certainty. "Richard Preston looked like he was about to have a panic attack every time you asked him a direct question." Richard Preston controls $400 million in investment capital. He does not panic. "He panics around you." Mirabelle zips her portfolio closed. "Again, I am really sorry. That was completely inappropriate, and I promise it will never happen again." She moves toward the door, but Sangwoo finds himself speaking before he consciously decides to. "It has never happened before." She turns back. "What?" "In 10 years of running negotiations, acquisitions, and partnerships across 3 continents, I have never lost focus in the middle of a presentation." He is not sure why he is telling her this. Not once, until today. Mirabelle stares at him, trying to determine if he is angry or something else entirely. "I really do not know what to say to that." "Neither do I," Sangwoo admits. They stand there in the empty conference room, the San Francisco skyline stretching out behind the windows, and something passes between them that neither can quite name. It is not just attraction, though that is definitely present. It is recognition, like two people who have been operating in similar high-pressure worlds suddenly finding someone who understands the weight of it. "I should go," Mirabelle says finally. "I have 3 more meetings today and I am already behind." Sangwoo nods. She leaves, and the conference room suddenly feels much larger and emptier than it did a moment ago. Kenneth pokes his head back in. "You good, man? That was weird." "I am fine," Sangwoo says automatically. But he is not fine, and he has no idea what to do about it. Do you think Mirabelle planned that wink, or was it pure instinct? Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Now let's continue. 3 days later. Sangwoo sits in his penthouse office overlooking the Bay Bridge and realizes he has read the same contract paragraph 4 times without absorbing a single word. This is unprecedented. Sangwoo's entire professional identity is built on his ability to maintain absolute focus under any circumstances. His father raised him with the understanding that discipline separates successful people from everyone else. His early years in Seoul were structured around this principle. Control your emotions, master your reactions, Never let external chaos influence internal clarity. It worked. By the time he moved to San Francisco at 19 to attend business school, Sang-woo had already developed a reputation for being unnaturally composed. While his classmates stressed over exams and presentations, he approached everything with the same calm, methodical precision. After graduating, he built his business empire using that exact approach, never deviating, never compromising. Until a woman he barely knows winked at him, and his brain completely shut down. He has tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was more tired than he realized. Maybe the stress of the deal was affecting him in ways he had not acknowledged. Maybe it was a fluke, a one-time neurological misfire that will never happen again. Except it keeps happening. Yesterday, he showed up 17 minutes late to a breakfast meeting in Palo Alto. 17 minutes. Sang-woo has not been late to anything since 2015. His assistant, Jennifer, actually asked if he was feeling sick. This morning, he approved a contract revision without reading the full amendment. Kenneth caught it before it became a problem, but the fact that it happened at all is disturbing. Sang-woo does not make careless mistakes. His entire reputation depends on his attention to detail. And now he is staring out the window at the bay, watching sailboats drift across the water, thinking about a woman he spoke to for maybe 5 minutes. Okay, what is going on with you? Sang-woo turns to find his younger sister Jaeyeon standing in his office doorway, arms crossed, wearing the expression she always gets when she knows something is wrong and will not leave until she gets answers. Jaeyeon is 29, whip-smart, and works as his communications director. She is one of the few people on Earth who can read him accurately, which is both useful and occasionally irritating. Nothing is going on, Sang-woo says. I am working. You are staring out the window. You never stare out the window. You barely look at windows. They are just architectural necessities to you. Jaeyeon walks into the office and sits in one of the leather chairs facing his desk. Kenneth told me about the meeting last week. He said you completely blanked in the middle of your presentation. I did not blank, I paused. You do not pause. Jaeyeon leans forward, genuinely concerned now. Opa, you have been off for days. Jennifer said you were late to the Palo Alto meeting. You are never late. What is happening? Sang-woo considers deflecting, but Jaeyeon will just persist. She is possibly more stubborn than he is. There was a woman at the meeting last week. She did something unexpected, and it caught me off guard. Jaeyeon's eyebrows shoot up. A woman? What woman? What did she do? Her name is Mirabelle Thomas. She works for a consulting firm that handles regulatory coordination. She walked in late, and when I looked at her, she winked at me. There is a long silence. Then Jaeyeon starts laughing. Not a polite chuckle, but a full, genuine laugh that she tries and fails to suppress with her hand. I am sorry, she gasps. But you are telling me that a woman winked at you, and that is why you have been acting weird for 3 days. It is not funny. It is absolutely funny. Sang-woo, you negotiate with people who control billions of dollars. You have stared down hostile acquisition attempts without blinking, and a wink broke you. When she puts it that way, it does sound ridiculous. Sang-woo runs a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. I know how it sounds, but I cannot stop thinking about it, about her. Jaeyeon's amusement fades into something more thoughtful. She has known her brother her entire life, and she has never heard him talk about a woman this way. Sang-woo dates occasionally, but it is always casual, always compartmentalized. He has never been distracted by anyone. Have you reached out to her? Jaeyeon asks. No, why would I? Because you clearly want to. Opa, you are literally having a crisis because you cannot stop thinking about someone you met for 5 minutes. That usually means something. Sang-woo considers this. The logical part of his brain insists that pursuing this is irrational. He does not know this woman. The wink was probably meaningless, just a spontaneous gesture she already regrets. Getting involved would be a distraction he cannot afford, especially with the current deal at such a critical stage. But another part of him, a part he usually keeps locked away, wants to see her again. Wants to understand what it was about that moment that affected him so deeply. I will think about it, he says finally. Jaeyeon smiles. You are already thinking about it. That is the whole problem. Meanwhile, across the city in a modest office in the Soma district, Mirabelle is having her own crisis. I cannot believe you actually winked at him, Shanice says for approximately the 20th time. At Sangwucho, do you have any idea how many people would pay money to see that man lose his composure? Mirabelle drops her head onto her desk. Please stop talking about it. Shanice, her best friend since their Stanford days and now her colleague at Coastline Consulting, is having far too much fun with this situation. The man is a legend. He is like a robot made of money and perfect cheekbones, and you winked at him. I know what I did, Shanice. And he completely froze. Kenneth Kim had to take over the presentation. This is the best story I have heard in months. Mirabelle lifts her head and glares at her friend. I am so glad my professional humiliation is entertaining for you. Oh, come on. You are not actually worried about your job, are you? Everyone knows you are brilliant. One weird moment is not going to change that. That weird moment was in front of 12 major investors and the most important business figure we have worked with in 2 years. I looked completely unprofessional. You looked human, Shanice corrects, which, in these circles, is actually pretty refreshing. Mirabelle wants to argue, but she is too busy being mortified. She has spent her entire career building a reputation as someone who is competent, reliable, and utterly professional. She grew up in Houston in a middle-class family, worked her way through Stanford on scholarships and part-time jobs, and clawed her way into a competitive industry that often felt designed to exclude people who look like her. She does not have the luxury of being unprofessional. She has to be twice as good just to be seen as equal. And then she winked at Sangwucho in the middle of a high-stakes business, meeting like some character in a romantic comedy. I still do not understand why I did it, Mirabelle says. It was like watching myself from outside my body. I saw him being all intense and serious, and everyone was so scared of him, and I just did it. Maybe you were subconsciously trying to throw him off his game, Shanice suggests. You know, level the playing field. By winking, that is not a professional strategy, Shanice. That is flirting. Was it flirting? Mirabelle pauses. Was it? She has been asking herself the same question for 3 days. The truth is, she does not know. In that moment, it felt less like attraction and more like mischief. Like she wanted to see if the famously unshakable Sangwucho was actually human underneath all that control. Turns out he is, very human. I need to forget this ever happened, Mirabelle decides. I have actual work to do, and obsessing over one weird interaction is not productive. Her computer pings with a new email. She opens it automatically, then freezes. What? Shanice asks, noticing her expression. It is from Kenneth Kim's office. They are requesting that I be assigned as the primary consultant for all future meetings related to the financial district project. Shanice's eyes widen. Wait, really? That is huge. That project is going to run for at least 18 months. Why would they request me specifically? Mirabelle asks, though part of her already knows the answer. Shanice grins. Oh, I think you know exactly why. Mirabelle stares at the email, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. This is either the best professional opportunity she has had in years, or it is about to get very, very complicated. Possibly both. The follow-up meeting is scheduled for the following Tuesday at a boutique business center in Menlo Park, one of the wealthiest towns in America, where venture capital flows like water and innovation is the primary currency. Mirabelle arrives 15 minutes early, determined to be aggressively professional. She has prepared extensively, reviewing every zoning regulation, every permit requirement, every potential complication that might arise during the development process. Whatever happened at the last meeting, she is going to prove that she is here because she is good at her job, not because of some weird moment of spontaneity. She is shown to a small conference room with modern furniture and a view of the tree-lined streets that make Menlo Park look more like a resort than a business hub. She sets up her materials, arranges her notes, and takes a deep breath. The door opens. Sangwoo walks in. Alone. No Kenneth, no investors, no assistants, just him carrying a leather portfolio and 2 cups of coffee. Mirabelle's professional composure wavers. Where is everyone else? There is no one else, Sangwoo says simply. He sets one of the coffee cups in front of her. I thought it would be more efficient to meet one-on-one to discuss the regulatory framework before involving the larger team. This is a lie, and they both know it. Mirabelle looks at the coffee, then at him. Mr. Cho. Sangwoo, he corrects. Sangwoo, she amends. I am not sure this is appropriate. If you requested me specifically because of what happened at the last meeting. I did, he interrupts. The blunt honesty catches her off guard. Most people in business wrap everything in layers of professional euphemism. Sangwoo apparently does not. He sits down across from her, and his expression is serious but not cold. I have been trying to understand what happened in that meeting for a week. I do not get distracted. I do not lose focus. But you did something that completely disrupted my ability to function, and I need to understand why. Mirabelle blinks. You brought me here to, what? Figure out why my wink broke your concentration. Yes. That is possibly the strangest thing anyone has ever said to me in a professional setting. This is not a professional meeting, Sangwoo says. This is a personal one disguised as a professional meeting because I did not know how else to see you again. Mirabelle should be offended. She should probably leave. This is wildly inappropriate by any standard business protocol. But instead, she finds herself weirdly charmed by the directness. No games, no pretense, just honest confusion from a man who clearly does not know how to process whatever is happening. Okay, she says slowly. What do you want to know? Why did you do it? Mirabelle takes a sip of the coffee. It is perfect, exactly how she likes it, which means he either guessed extremely well or somehow found out. Honestly, I do not know. Everyone in that room was treating you like some kind of intimidating force of nature, and I guess part of me wanted to see if you were actually human. And now I am sitting in a fake business meeting with someone who just admitted he orchestrated this whole thing to see me again. So yes, definitely human. The corner of Sangwoo's mouth twitches, the closest thing to a smile she has seen from him. I do not usually do things like this. What? Lie about business meetings? Act impulsively, pursue distractions, lose control. He pauses. Any of it. They sit there for a moment, the sunlight streaming through the windows, and Mirabelle realizes this is a crossroads. She can shut this down right now, insist on keeping things professional, and probably save herself a lot of complications. Or she can be honest about the fact that she has also been thinking about him for a week straight. I do not usually wink at intimidating businessmen in the middle of important meetings, she offers, so I guess we are both off our game. Tell me about yourself, Sangwoo says, not your resume, you. So she does. She tells him about growing up in Houston, about her parents who both worked in education and raised her to believe she could do anything if she worked hard enough. She talks about Stanford, about being one of the few Black women in her program, and the pressure that came with that. She describes her journey into consulting, the challenges of breaking into an industry that often felt like an old boys' club with a fresh coat of paint. Sangwoo listens with complete attention, the same focus he probably brings to billion-dollar negotiations, and it is both flattering and slightly unnerving. When she finishes, he shares his own story, growing up in Seoul in a family where success was not an option but an expectation. His father built a business empire through ruthless discipline and expected his children to do the same. Moving to San Francisco at 19, knowing almost no one, building his network and reputation from scratch. The pressure of carrying his family name in a new country. The isolation that comes with always being the most controlled person in the room. People think discipline is strength, Sangwoo says quietly. Sometimes it is just fear of what happens if you let go, even for a moment. Mirabelle recognizes the honesty in that statement, the vulnerability it takes to admit it. Is that why you wanted to see me? Because I made you let go? Maybe, or maybe because you were not afraid of me, and that was, he searches for the word, refreshing. They talk for 2 hours. The coffee goes cold. Neither of them touches their business materials. By the time Mirabelle glances at her phone and realizes how much time has passed, the dynamic between them has shifted completely. I should go, she says, though she does not particularly want to. I actually do have real work to do. Sangwoo nods but does not move immediately. Can I see you again? Not like this. A real meeting. Dinner, maybe. Like a date. Yes, like a date. Mirabelle should probably say no. Getting involved with someone connected to a major client is ethically complicated at best, but she finds herself nodding before her logical brain can intervene. Okay, one date. One date, Sangwoo agrees. As she packs up her things and heads for the door, Mirabelle catches him watching her with an expression she cannot quite read. It is not the cold, analytical look she saw in the first meeting. It is warmer, more open, more dangerous. Their first real date happens on a Friday evening at an exclusive rooftop restaurant in Atherton, a town so wealthy that its median home price exceeds $7 million. The restaurant itself is the kind of place that does not advertise because everyone who matters already knows about it. Sangwoo has reserved a private table overlooking the bay. The evening is perfect, one of those rare California nights where the temperature is exactly right and the sky fades from blue to gold to deep purple. Mirabelle arrives wearing a dress she definitely could not afford, but bought anyway because some moments justify minor financial irresponsibility. When Sangwoo sees her, something flickers across his usually controlled expression. Appreciation, maybe more. You look incredible, he says simply. You do not look too bad yourself, Mirabelle replies, taking in his perfectly tailored suit that probably costs more than her monthly rent. The evening unfolds beautifully. They order food that tastes like art on a plate. They talk about everything: favorite books, worst travel experiences, the pressure of family expectations, the loneliness of always being the one who has to be strong. Sangwoo is surprisingly funny when he allows himself to be, with a dry wit that catches her off guard. Mirabelle finds herself laughing more than she has in months. For a few hours, they are not a high-powered businessman and an ambitious consultant. They are just two people who genuinely enjoy each other's company. Then Sangwoo's phone rings. He glances at the screen, and Mirabelle watches his expression change. The warmth drains away, replaced by something harder, more guarded. I apologize, he says. I need to take this. He steps away from the table, moving to a quiet corner of the restaurant. Mirabelle cannot hear the conversation, but she can see his body language. Tense, defensive. Whatever is being said, he does not like it. When he returns 5 minutes later, he is a different person than the one who left. The walls are back up. I am very sorry, Sangwoo says, and he actually does sound apologetic. There is a family situation I need to address immediately. I have to go. Mirabelle tries not to feel disappointed. Is everything okay? My uncle arrived in San Francisco from Seoul, unannounced. He wants to meet with me tonight. There is something in the way he says it that tells Mirabelle this is not a welcome family reunion. Do you need to go right now? When my uncle requests a meeting, it is not really a request. Sangwoo signals for the check, handles it quickly, and then walks Mirabelle to her car. The ease between them from earlier in the evening is gone, replaced by a tension she does not fully understand. I really am sorry, he says again. This was not how I wanted tonight to end. It is okay. Family is important. He gives her a look that suggests his family might be important, but not in the way she means. Can I call you tomorrow? Sure. But he does not call. Not the next day or the day after that. By Wednesday, Mirabelle has accepted that whatever was starting between them has apparently ended before it really began. She tells herself it is for the best. Getting involved with someone so deeply connected to her professional world was always going to be complicated. Better to find out now that it would not work than to invest more time and emotion. She almost convinces herself she believes it. On Thursday evening, her phone finally rings. Sangwoo's name appears on the screen. Hello, she answers, trying to sound casual. Mirabelle, I apologize for not calling sooner. The past few days have been complicated. It is fine. You do not owe me an explanation. I want to see you. Can we meet? Something in his voice makes her hesitate. He sounds different, strained. When? Now, if possible. I know it is last minute, but I really need to talk to you. They meet at a quiet coffee shop in Palo Alto, far enough from both their offices to be neutral territory. Sangwoo looks exhausted, like he has not slept properly in days. They get coffee and find a corner table away from other customers. "What happened?" Mirabelle asks. Sangwoo is quiet for a long moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "My family has very specific expectations for my life, who I do business with, how I represent the family name, eventually who I marry." Mirabelle feels something cold settle in her stomach. "Okay. My uncle came to San Francisco because word got back to my father about me meeting with you. Alone. Multiple times. They did some research. They know we went to dinner." "How would they know that?" "My family has resources and connections. Privacy is not something I have much of when it comes to them." Mirabelle sits back, processing this. "So what are you saying?" "I am saying that my family expects me to marry someone they approve of. Someone from a Korean business family with the right connections and background. They have already identified several suitable options. There are meetings being arranged." The words land like stones. Mirabelle keeps her expression neutral, a skill she learned early in her career. "I see." "I do not want those meetings," Sangwoo says, and there is genuine frustration in his voice. "I do not want to marry someone because it makes business sense for my family, but the pressure is immense. My father built everything we have, and the expectation is that I will honor that by following the path he sets." "So where does that leave us?" Sangwoo meets her eyes. "I do not know. I want to keep seeing you, but I cannot promise that it will not be complicated. My family will not approve. There will be pressure, expectations, possibly consequences for my business relationships." Mirabelle takes a slow breath. She appreciates his honesty, but the message is clear. She can be his secret, his rebellion, the relationship he hides from his family. And eventually, when the pressure gets too intense, he will do what is expected of him. She has too much self-respect for that. "I appreciate you being honest with me," Mirabelle says carefully, "but I am not interested in being someone's complication. I am not going to be the person you see in private while your family arranges your future. I have worked too hard to build my life to accept being hidden." "That is not what I am asking." "Then what are you asking, Sangwoo? Because from where I am sitting, it sounds like you want me to wait around while you figure out if you are brave enough to choose what you actually want over what your family expects." The words are harsher than she intended, but they are also true. Sangwoo flinches slightly, which tells her the criticism landed. "You are right," he says quietly. "I am asking you to wait while I try to navigate an impossible situation. That is not fair to you." "No, it is not." Mirabelle stands up. She needs to leave before her emotions betray how much this actually hurts. "I think you should figure out what you want. Not what your family wants, not what makes business sense. What you actually want. And when you know that, if you still want to talk, you know how to reach me." She walks out of the coffee shop before he can respond, before she can see his expression, before she can second-guess herself into staying. The drive home is a blur. When she gets to her apartment in the Mission District, she lets herself cry for exactly 10 minutes. Then she washes her face, makes tea, and reminds herself that she has survived worse than a failed romance that barely started. She will be fine. Eventually. 3 weeks pass. Mirabelle throws herself into work with the kind of focus that her colleagues find both impressive and slightly concerning. She takes on a major new project coordinating logistics for a tech conference in Cupertino, one of those massive industry events that requires managing hundreds of vendors, sponsors, and speakers. It is complex, demanding work that requires her complete attention. Perfect. Shanice tries to get her to talk about what happened with Sangwoo, but Mirabelle shuts down those conversations quickly. There is nothing to talk about. It was a brief connection that could not survive the reality of their different worlds. She is moving on. She definitely does not think about him, except when she does, which is more often than she would like to admit. Meanwhile, Sangwoo is drowning. The pressure from his family has intensified. His uncle has returned to Seoul but left behind very clear expectations. His father calls weekly to discuss the suitable matches they have identified. There are photographs, background information, family histories that read like corporate prospectuses. One woman is the daughter of a major Korean manufacturing executive. Another is from a family that controls significant media properties. All of them are accomplished, educated, and exactly what his father expects. All of them are not Mirabel. Sangwoo goes through the motions of meeting these women because refusing would create a level of family conflict he is not ready to navigate. The meetings are polite, professional, completely devoid of any genuine connection. The women seem equally unenthused, which at least means he is not the only one being pushed into this. Jaeyeon watches her brother go through this process with increasing frustration. She has met Mirabel once, briefly, when she stopped by Sangwoo's office during one of their early meetings. She liked her immediately. She also sees what this situation is doing to her brother. "You look miserable," Jaeyeon says one afternoon, finding Sangwoo staring at his computer screen without actually working. "I am fine." "You are absolutely not fine. You have been a zombie for 3 weeks. She sits down across from him. "Have you talked to her?" "Who?" "Do not play stupid. Mirabel, have you talked to her?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I do not have anything different to tell her. The situation has not changed. My family still expects me to marry someone they approve of. I am still trying to navigate expectations that feel impossible. What am I supposed to say to her?" Jaeyeon leans forward. "How about the truth? That you cannot stop thinking about her. That every woman father introduces you to feels wrong because they are not her. That you are choosing duty over happiness and it is killing you." "It is not that simple." "It is exactly that simple. You are just scared." Sangwoo wants to argue, but Jaeyeon is right. He is scared. Scared of disappointing his father. Scared of the consequences of defying family expectations. Scared of losing the empire he helped build if he chooses wrong. But he is also scared of never seeing Mirabel again. Then something unexpected happens. Mirabel's tech conference and Sangwoo's family business event end up scheduled at venues right next to each other in downtown San Jose. It is pure coincidence, the kind of timing that feels almost orchestrated by the universe. On the second day of the conference, Sangwoo is walking through the shared parking structure when he sees a familiar figure ahead of him, juggling a laptop bag, a box of programs, and a coffee that looks dangerously close to spilling. "Mirabel." She turns, and the surprise on her face mirrors his own. "Sangwoo, what are you doing here?" "Business event. What about you?" "Tech conference." She shifts the box to a more secure position. "What are the odds?" "In the Bay Area tech community. Probably higher than you think." They stand there in the concrete expanse of the parking structure, surrounded by expensive cars and the echo of footsteps, and all the carefully constructed distance Mirabel has maintained for 3 weeks crumbles. "You look good," Sangwoo says. "You look tired," Mirabel responds honestly. "I am." The conversation could end there. They could exchange polite goodbyes and go their separate ways, maintaining the clean break that Mirabel initiated. But something in Sangwoo's expression stops her. "Do you have a minute?" he asks. Mirabel glances at her watch. She has 15 minutes before her next session. "Sure." They walk to Sangwoo's car and he unlocks it. "Get in." "Where are we going?" "Nowhere. I just want to talk without a dozen people walking past us." They sit in his Mercedes, an absurdly nice car that still somehow smells new, and for a moment, neither speaks. "I have been miserable," Sangwoo says finally. "For 3 weeks, I have been going through the motions of my life feeling like something essential is missing. My family has introduced me to 4 different women. All of them are perfectly suitable. All of them make me want to drive into the ocean." Despite herself, Mirabel feels a flicker of hope. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I have been trying to do the right thing, trying to balance what I want with what is expected of me, trying to find a compromise that does not exist." He turns to look at her. "And the only thing I am certain of is that walking away from you was the worst decision I have made in my entire life." Mirabel's heart is doing complicated things in her chest. "The situation has not changed, Sangwoo. Your family still expects you to marry someone they approve of. I am still not interested in being your secret. I know, you were right about everything you said. I was asking you to wait while I figured out if I was brave enough to choose what I want. He pauses. I am trying to be brave enough. Trying is not the same as doing. I know, but I am working on it. And in the meantime, I just needed you to know that I have not stopped thinking about you, not for a single day. They sit in silence, the weight of everything unsaid filling the car. Mirabelle knows she should protect herself, maintain distance, not let Hope back in. But the exhaustion in his eyes, the raw honesty in his voice, breaks through her defenses. I have not stopped thinking about you either, she admits quietly. Sangwoo reaches across the console and takes her hand. The contact is electric, familiar despite the weeks apart. I do not have answers yet. I am still trying to navigate my family's expectations. But I am done pretending that this does not matter, that you do not matter. What does that mean practically? It means I want to keep seeing you, honestly this time. Not hidden, not secret. I cannot promise my family will accept it, but I can promise I am done hiding. Mirabelle wants to believe him. She also knows that promises are easier than follow-through, especially when facing the kind of family pressure he has described. This is going to get complicated. It already is complicated, but at least we will be complicated together. Against her better judgment, Mirabelle finds herself smiling. That is possibly the least romantic thing anyone has ever said to me. I am working on my delivery. They sit there in the parking structure, holding hands like teenagers, and for the first time in 3 weeks, both of them feel like they can breathe properly. Mirabelle makes a decision that surprises everyone, including herself. She is not going to wait for Sangwoo to choose her. She is not going to be the woman hopping a man finds his courage. Instead, she is going to build something so undeniable that the conversation about her worthiness becomes irrelevant. The idea comes to her during a team meeting at Coastline Consulting. Her boss, David Chen, is discussing the challenges they face competing for contracts with international firms, particularly those with Korean and Asian business interests. There is a gap in the market for consultants who truly understand both American regulatory frameworks and Asian business culture. Mirabelle has an idea. She spends 2 weeks developing a proposal for a new division within Coastline specifically focused on bridging American and Korean business partnerships. The presentation includes market research, potential client lists, competitive analysis, and projected revenue streams. She works on it every evening, refining every detail until it is perfect. When she finally presents it to the senior partners, she delivers it with the confidence of someone who knows exactly how good her idea is. David and the other partners are initially skeptical. It is a significant investment with uncertain returns, but Mirabelle has anticipated every objection, prepared responses for every concern. By the end of her presentation, the room has shifted from skepticism to genuine interest. You really think there is a market for this? David asks. I know there is. The Bay Area has one of the largest Korean business communities in the United States. Companies are desperate for consultants who can navigate both worlds effectively. Right now, they are cobbling together solutions from multiple firms. We could be the one-stop resource. After 3 days of deliberation, the partners give her the green light. She has 3 months to prove the concept works. If she succeeds, the division becomes permanent and she becomes its director. If she fails, the project gets scrapped. Mirabelle does not plan to fail. Word spreads quickly in the tight-knit business community. Within 2 weeks, Mirabelle is being invited to networking events in San Mateo and Burlingame, introduced as the woman building bridges between Korean and American business interests. She is no longer just another consultant. She is becoming a name. She gives a presentation at a business summit in Foster City. She is quoted in an article about international business development in the Bay Area. Her LinkedIn profile explodes with connection requests. Sangwoo hears about her rise from multiple sources. Business associates mention meeting an impressive consultant named Mirabelle Thomas. His accountant forwards him the article she was quoted in. Jae-yeon, who has been quietly following Mirabelle's career, shows him the presentation announcement. She is not waiting for you, Jae-yeon observes. She is building her own empire. Sangwoo reads the article 3 times. There is a photograph of Mirabelle at a networking event, looking confident and accomplished, surrounded by business leaders who clearly respect her. She is not the woman who walked into his meeting late and flustered. She is powerful in her own right. And he has never been more attracted to anyone in his life. I'm an idiot, Sangwoo says. Yes, Jaeyeon agrees, but you can still fix it. How? By doing what she is doing. Stop waiting for father's approval. Stop trying to compromise. Build the life you actually want and make everyone else adjust. It sounds simple when Jaeyeon says it. In reality, it means potentially blowing up his relationship with his father, risking his position in the family business, and facing consequences he cannot fully predict. But watching Mirabelle refuse to compromise, refuse to wait, refuse to be anything less than extraordinary, Sangwoo realizes that his sister is right. Discipline is not strength. Sometimes courage is. He makes a phone call. The business summit in Newport Beach is one of the most important events in the California business calendar. Over 500 attendees, including major investors, business leaders, and media representatives from across the Pacific Rim. Sangwoo is scheduled to deliver the keynote address on international business development. It is the kind of high-profile speaking engagement that reinforces his status as a major figure in the business community. His speech has been prepared for weeks, reviewed by his team, approved by his father. He scraps it the night before. Jaeyeon finds him in his hotel room at 2 a.m, rewriting the entire presentation. What are you doing? Something I should have done months ago. Oppa, the speech is fine. Do not mess with it now. The speech is safe, and I am done being safe. The next morning, the ballroom in Newport Beach is packed. Sangwoo's father is in the audience, as is his uncle. Kenneth is there. Dozens of business associates, investors, and media representatives. And Mirabelle, who is attending the summit for her own networking purposes and had no idea Sangwoo was speaking until she saw his name in the program. Sangwoo takes the stage. For a moment, he stands there in silence, looking out at the sea of faces. Then he begins. I was supposed to talk to you today about market trends and investment strategies, he says, but I am going to talk about something else instead. I am going to talk about legacy. He has the room's complete attention. My father built an empire through discipline and control. He taught me that success comes from never deviating from the plan, never letting emotion interfere with logic, never allowing personal desires to complicate business decisions. For most of my life, I believed that was the only path to success. In the audience, his father's expression is unreadable. But recently, someone challenged that belief. Someone showed me that strength is not the same as rigidity. That courage sometimes means choosing what you want over what is expected. That the most important partnerships are not the ones that make business sense, but the ones that make you better. Mirabelle, sitting in the back of the ballroom, realizes what is happening. Her heart starts racing. I have spent the past 6 months trying to balance family expectations with personal happiness, trying to find a compromise between duty and desire. And I have finally realized that some things should not require compromise. Sangwoo pauses, then says the words that change everything. I want to publicly acknowledge Mirabelle Thomas, a consultant whose insight and perspective have challenged the way I think about partnership and growth. Her work building bridges between American and Korean business communities represents the kind of innovative thinking that defines the future of international business. She has shown me that the strongest foundations are built not on tradition alone, but on the courage to create something new. The room is silent, then whispers start, cameras flash, people pull out their phones. Sangwoo sees his father's face harden. His uncle looks furious, but Jaeyeon is smiling and Kenneth gives him a subtle nod of approval. In the back of the room, Mirabelle has tears in her eyes. Sangwoo finishes his speech focusing on innovation, courage, and the importance of building businesses that reflect personal values, not just profit margins. The applause when he finishes is thunderous, but he barely hears it. He walks off the stage and finds his father waiting. We need to talk, his father says, voice tight with controlled anger. Yes, we do, but not now. Sangwoo walks past him, through the crowd of people trying to congratulate him or ask questions, out of the ballroom entirely. He finds Mirabelle in the lobby, standing by the windows overlooking the ocean. "You just blew up your entire family relationship for me," she says when he reaches her. "I did it for me, but yes, also for you." Mirabelle does not know whether to kiss him or yell at him. She does both, in that order. The kiss is brief but electric, witnessed by at least a dozen conference attendees who immediately start texting about it. "You are completely insane," she says when they break apart. "Probably, but I am done being who everyone expects me to be." They stand there in the lobby, and Mirabelle realizes this is the moment everything changes. Not because Sang-woo chose her, but because he finally chose himself. And that makes all the difference. The fallout is brutal and immediate. Sang-woo's father calls an emergency meeting for that evening. The conversation happens in a private dining room at the hotel, just Sang-woo, his father, and his uncle. Jae-yeon is explicitly excluded, which tells Sang-woo exactly how serious this is. His father speaks in Korean, which he only does when he is truly angry. The words are formal, controlled, but the message is clear. Sang-woo has embarrassed the family. He has shown disrespect for tradition and expectation. He has prioritized personal desire over family honor. The consequences are immediate. Sang-woo is removed from decision-making roles in several key family business operations. His uncle announces plans to return to Seoul and begin restructuring certain partnerships that currently depend on Sang-woo's involvement. There are implications that his position in the family organization may be reevaluated entirely. "You have always been my greatest pride," his father says finally, switching back to English. "I believed you understood what it meant to carry our family name. I was wrong." The words hurt more than Sang-woo expected. He has spent his entire life trying to earn his father's respect, and in one speech, he has apparently destroyed it. But something unexpected happens as the meeting concludes. His father stands to leave, pauses at the door, and says without looking back, "I hope she is worth it." There is something in his tone that is not entirely condemnation. It is not approval, not even close. But it is not complete rejection either. It is the smallest crack in an otherwise impenetrable wall. Over the next 2 weeks, Sang-woo experiences what it means to be functionally cut off from the family empire he helped build. Business associates become distant. Meetings get rescheduled or canceled. His access to certain accounts and decisions is quietly restricted. Kenneth stays loyal, which Sang-woo appreciates more than he can express. But even Kenneth is limited in what he can do without running afoul of the family. Sang-woo has moments of doubt. Late nights when he wonders if he made a catastrophic mistake, if pride and principle are worth the professional isolation he is now experiencing. Then he sees Mirabelle and remembers why he did it. She does not let him wallow. When he shows up at her apartment looking defeated after a particularly brutal conference call with his uncle, she makes him coffee, listens to him vent, and then tells him something that changes his perspective. "You have spent your whole life building your father's empire. Maybe it is time to build your own." The idea takes root. Sang-woo starts making calls, not to family business associates, but to American investors and partners he has built relationships with over the years. People who respect him for his work, not his family name. The response surprises him. Several major investors reach out privately to express support. They have always respected Sang-woo's discipline and business acumen, but the courage he showed at the Newport Beach Summit impressed them even more. In a business world full of people who never risk anything personal, his willingness to stand up for what he believed in marked him as someone different. New opportunities begin to emerge. A venture capital firm in San Francisco wants to discuss partnership opportunities. A development group in Seattle invites him to consult on a major project. These are not family connections. They are relationships Sang-woo has built on his own merit. Mirabelle helps him navigate this new landscape. Her connections in the consulting world open doors. Her understanding of both American business culture and Korean expectations gives him perspective he did not have before. They start structuring something new together, not a traditional business partnership, but a collaborative approach that blends their expertise. It is terrifying. Building something from scratch without the safety net of his family's empire feels like walking a tightrope without a net. But it also feels authentic in a way that his previous work never did. Jae-yeon joins them, officially resigning from the family business to work as communications director for Sang-woo's new venture. Their father does not take the news well, but Jae-yeon tells Sang-woo privately that she has been wanting an excuse to step away for years. "You gave me permission to choose my own path too," she says, "even if you did not mean to." 6 months after the Newport Beach summit, Sang-woo's new firm closes its first major deal. It is not as large as the projects he handled through his family business, but it is entirely his own. The partnership bridges Korean manufacturing with American sustainable development, exactly the kind of innovative collaboration that Mirabel advocated for. The success is undeniable. Even Sang-woo's father cannot ignore the numbers. The call comes on a Tuesday evening. Sang-woo's father requests a private meeting, not a demand this time, a request. They meet at a traditional Korean restaurant in Los Angeles, a place Sang-woo's father has been coming to for 20 years. The atmosphere is formal, the kind of setting where serious conversations happen. His father is already seated when Sang-woo arrives. They exchange polite greetings in Korean, and then sit in silence while tea is poured. "Your business is doing well," his father says finally. "Yes. We have been fortunate." "Fortune has nothing to do with it. You have always been exceptionally skilled. I taught you that." Sang-woo does not argue the point. His father takes a sip of tea, gathering his thoughts. "I built my life on control and tradition. I believed that was the only path to success. I expected you to follow that same path." "I know. When you stood on that stage in Newport Beach and rejected everything I taught you, I was furious. I felt you had betrayed the family, dishonored everything we built." His father pauses. "But I have been watching you these past months, watching you build something on your own, and I realized something." Sang-woo waits. "You did not reject what I taught you. You just applied it differently. The discipline, the focus, the refusal to accept failure, those are all things I instilled in you. You simply chose to use them to build your own empire rather than maintain mine." It is not an apology. Sang-woo's father does not apologize, but it is an acknowledgement which might be more valuable. "You reminded me of myself when I was younger," his father continues. "Before responsibility and tradition hardened me into something rigid, I took risks no one thought I should take. I built something from nothing because I believed I could. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that courage built this family, not just discipline." Sang-woo feels something loosen in his chest, tension he did not fully realize he was carrying. "I do not know if I will ever fully approve of your choices," his father says, "but I respect them, and I respect you for having the strength to make them." It is as close to a blessing as Sang-woo is likely to get, and surprisingly, it is enough. They talk for another hour, not about business, but about family. About Jae-yeon, who his father admits he is proud of even if he wishes she had made different choices. About Sang-woo's mother, who has been quietly supportive throughout this entire situation. About the future, which looks different than either of them expected but not necessarily worse. When they part, his father does something unexpected. He places his hand on Sang-woo's shoulder, a gesture of connection he has not made in years. "Bring her to Seoul sometime," he says. "Your mother wants to meet the woman who changed everything." Later that evening, Sang-woo goes to Mirabel's apartment and tells her everything. She listens quietly, and when he finishes, she takes his hand. "How do you feel?" "Lighter," he admits, "like I can finally breathe properly." They talk about the future, about expanding their business into new markets, about the challenges that still exist, about the fact that his family's full acceptance will probably take years, if it ever comes at all. But they also talk about the fact that they did this. They built something real in the face of impossible obstacles. They refused to compromise who they were, and they found each other in the process. 3 months later, Sang-woo and Mirabel's firm closes a major deal, a partnership that bridges Korean manufacturing with American sustainable development in Irvine, one of California's wealthiest and most forward-thinking cities. The project is featured in business publications across the Pacific Rim. Their firm is now on the map as a serious player in international development. On the evening the deal closes, Sangwoo takes Mirabelle to the rooftop of his San Francisco penthouse. The city glows beneath them, lights stretching out to the bay and beyond. It is where they had their first real date, before everything got complicated. "I have been thinking," Sangwoo says. "That is usually dangerous." He smiles. "You did not just change my mind that day in the conference room. You changed my entire life. You showed me that I did not have to choose between strength and authenticity, that I could build something meaningful without sacrificing who I am." Mirabelle leans against the railing, looking out at the city. "We both changed. I was so focused on proving myself that I forgot I did not need anyone's approval to be valuable. You reminded me of that. So we are good for each other." Apparently. Sangwoo reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small box. When he opens it, Mirabelle sees a ring. It is not ostentatious or overly elaborate. It is simple, elegant, perfect. "I am not asking you to fit into my world," Sangwoo says. "I am asking you to build a new one with me. A world where we do not have to choose between love and ambition, family and independence, tradition and innovation. A world where we get to define success on our own terms." Mirabelle looks at the ring, then at him. Her eyes are bright with tears, but she is smiling. "That is a much better proposal than your last attempt at romantic gesture." "I have been practicing." "I can tell," she holds out her hand. "Yes, obviously yes." He slides the ring onto her finger, and then he kisses her while the city lights sparkle around them like stars brought down to earth. They stand there together, two people who refused to compromise who they were and found everything they needed in each other. Victory, love, and a future they chose for themselves. 6 months after that, they open a second office in Seoul. Sangwoo's mother attends the opening ceremony. His father sends flowers, which is his way of offering approval without saying the words directly. Mirabelle's parents fly in from Houston, and watching them interact with Sangwoo's family is simultaneously awkward and wonderful. Two completely different worlds finding common ground through the connection their children built. The business continues to grow. More importantly, Sangwoo and Mirabelle continue to grow. They navigate the challenges of building a life together while building an empire. They have arguments about strategy and compromise on solutions. They support each other through setbacks and celebrate victories together. 2 years after the wink that started everything, they get married in a ceremony that blends Korean and American traditions in a way that honors both their backgrounds. Jae-yeon is the maid of honor. Kenneth is the best man. Both sets of parents attend, and while Sangwoo's father remains somewhat formal, he tells Mirabelle privately that she has made his son happier than he has ever seen him. The wedding is featured in business publications not because of the spectacle, but because it represents something meaningful. Two people from different worlds who built a bridge between them and invited everyone else to cross it. Years later, when people ask Sangwoo about the moment everything changed, he always tells the same story. About walking into a conference room expecting another routine negotiation, and having a woman wink at him and completely destroy his legendary composure. "Best thing that ever happened to me," he always says. Mirabelle usually adds, "Second best." The first was him finally finding the courage to choose what he actually wanted. And together, they built something neither could have created alone. Not just a business, but a life. One defined by courage, authenticity, and the refusal to accept that love and ambition are mutually exclusive. They proved that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose yourself. And if you are very lucky, you find someone brave enough to choose themselves too. And together, you build something extraordinary.